Getting to the big day, Saturday, Belmont Stakes Day, and we have Belmont Stakes packages that bundle together past performances, clocker reports, betting strategies, and you also get the player's guide for Belmont Stakes Saturday. It is a huge day of racing. It's really a huge week of racing at the Belmont Stakes Racing Festival at Saratoga, but the real feature is Saturday with the Belmont Stakes. And Barry, as we get ready to talk about this card, the Belmont in general came up about as good as you could expect right now, where you get the Preakness winner versus the Derby winner. You get the top three finishers from the Kentucky Derby. And then you've got a Baffert horse. You've got two Todd Pletcher runners, and you've got a horse chipping in. It pretty much was about how this race was going to play out, about the best version of it this year.
Yeah. I mean, minus the Triple Crown aspect of it, this is probably one of the better fields that we'll see of 3-year-olds besides the Derby, up until probably the Breeders' Cup. So, everybody after this will probably go their separate ways and do their thing and end up at and whoever's left will end up at the Breeders' Cup at Del Mar. But this is a pretty good field. Journalism isn't a cinch in this race like he probably was or should have been in the last two, but it's a real interesting race all the way around.
Yeah, you have, the top two in the division have been Sovereignty and Journalism throughout most of the year. Baeza's not far behind them. You can make cases for a horse like Rodriguez as a speed horse. Maybe he can sneak away from Crudo. And then you've got a horse like Hill Road, who's sort of late developing as well. So we'll get into that Belmont in just a little bit. That's race number 13, but we're going to start with race number 6. Also want to remind you, the clocker reports, you can purchase individual clocker reports for each days. They're also part of the Belmont Stakes package there at shop.drf.com. So race number 6 is the Grade 2 Wonder again. In this race, we have 3-year-old fillies, and the filly that is at the top of this division right now is Nitrogen. She is excellent. She's won 4 in a row. She's pretty versatile too. Like, she doesn't want to be dead last, but she's not going to be on the lead. She'll be sitting a few lengths behind, and she's kind of push button. When they want to ask her to go, she just goes. So I respect her. I'm not trying to knock her in any way. I was kind of treating her like sort of what I was talking about with She Feels Pretty. Like, I sort of know that she's better than most of these. The horses who I would give a small look to that I think maybe have some sort of upside that could be competitive with Nitrogen. The one Al Jafara second start in the U.S., right? That first U.S. start was very good. Could she just improve now off of that effort? I think she was one of the ones. The other one for me would be the horse to the outside, Laura Lynn, who's kind of adapted. She's shown, different ways to win. She's going to make her second start back after 5.5 months. They all have to beat Nitrogen. She's the one to start with, but you seemed like you were in agreement that Al Jafara is going to run a good race.
Oh, absolutely. I just have the notion that one of these days, Nitrogen is
She's not going to win every race in a row, right? She's going to get unlucky one of these days. She's going to get in some trouble. Can you find the horses who are competitive enough that if things don't go perfect for her, they capitalize, right? And that's what we're trying to do here a little bit.
Yep, I think El Jafara is definitely one of them. I like that effort off the bench from a while from France. I think this horse will, again, it's another one of those Chad Brown runners where he brings them along. They're laid off for a little bit, have one race, and then the second race, they really, really pop. The other horse maybe would be the 8, Laura Lynn.
Yep.
I like that effort off the bench. Probably can springboard off of that. 3 for 3 isn't anything to shake a stick at. I just don't. I can't trust Nitrogen too much going forward until she loses again.
And Laura Lynn ran 2 really nice races last year as a 2-year-old. In the Tepin, she beat a very nice horse named 5G, who came out and won the Gulfstream Park Oaks, and then would have been a major player in the Kentucky Oaks if she was in there. So she's now second start as a 3-year-old. Can she, just looking at her speed figures, it doesn't always work this way, but the improvement that she's shown, like if she takes one step forward off of that and goes up 4 to 5 ish more buyer speed figure points, that's like right in the range we're talking about with Nitrogen, who's thrown up like the mid to high 80s in her last couple. And she's coming off of a couple really nice efforts. Maybe she regresses just a tad and these horses step up. That's how I'm looking at it. We both thought the same 2 horses were the logical horses if you're trying to play against Nitrogen. Because I like a horse like Opulent Restraint. That's sort of why I liked Laurelin, because Opulent Restraint got the trip that she wanted. She was clear going 48 and change, and Laurelin was still able to run her down.
Yeah, I mean that's a tough read because again, it's another Chad Brown horse coming off the layoff. Remember, the second time they usually pop, and that one did.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure that the speed trip is really what that horse wanted to do. But there's not much in here, and I think this horse will probably get the same kind of trip.
Probably ends up on the front again, kind of by default, right? You're right. So maybe even if you're taking the approach to try to beat Nitrogen and you're spreading out in this race, I probably would throw in the 5 just because of what you're saying, right? She could be like loose on the front end again, and maybe that's not her favorite trip, but horses fall into wins like that. Like you'd rather have the horse on the lead than the horse stuck from the back, having to deal with a bunch of traffic. Third start of the form cycle. So, yeah, I had her 4th, kind of underneath the other 3 that we had just been mentioning. With Nitrogen, even money, looking for 5 in a row, but she'll have to deal with horses like Laurelin, who's looking for 4 in a row, and a horse like Al Jafara, who was extremely impressive in her first start in the U.S. She's actually looking for 3 in a row herself. So the grade 2 wonder again, I think you get like pick 4s that start right here. There's so many wagers over the couple days. I don't even exactly know where all of them start or not, but we'll hit on all of these stakes races for Saturday. As we move to the True North, 6.5 furlongs, grade 3 event. We're actually going to see in the 8th race, the Met Mile, like a couple of the horses in this race were initially supposed to run in the Met Mile, like the 2, Crazy Mason, like the 5, Bookham Dano, and like the 6, Mulligan. Any of the 3 of them, or all 3 of them, could have been in the Met Mile. And honestly, they would have been horses they're not as good as Fierceness, but that would have been a pretty logical spot for horses like this. So what it ends up doing is it actually makes the True North a little tougher, right? Because they're all in this race instead of running in the Met Mile. I think you want to start with some of those horses I was mentioning. Crazy Mason's in great form right now. He's won 3 in a row. He just won the Carter. He's just not fast early. So it worries you a little bit because he needs a trip. He needs some help. But when he gets that trip, he comes rolling. The 4, Nakatomi, is actually a grade 1 winner. Just finished second in the Dubai Golden Shaheen. That was a very good effort on April the 25th from Nakatomi. Bookham Dano is a grade 1 winner. He was a close 4th in a really, really tough edition of the grade 1 Churchill Downs. He was behind Mindframe, Banishing, and Nisos. And then Mulligan was just behind that. And it was the first start off the bench for Mulligan. He was drawn way to the outside. He was hooked extremely wide. I thought he ran a bang-up race, actually, off the bench against that field from that trip way out there. Those are kind of the top horses in here, the most proven, the most accomplished. Who are some of the horses you like in this spot?
Well, I think Bookham Dano kind of outclasses this field, but I kind of hesitate to play a horse like that in a race like this just because the dynamics never really fit right. And what I mean by that is I don't know what kind of trip really Bookham Dano really wants. He's won on the lead, he's won off the pace. I would say he probably wants to be sort of close up.
But then it sometimes takes a little out of him, right?
Yeah,
When he's almost like a miler, because he can go a little bit slower, but it's like he doesn't want to go that far. I know what you're hitting at. Like when he goes shorter and he's involved early, it's like it's too quick. And then,
right.
Or he's too far out of it. And then he's like weaving through traffic.
Making up ground and trying to play catch up late. But a horse that's really interesting to me is the 1, Concrete Glory. There's a lot of versions of this race where I think this horse gets a lone lead. and shakes loose, gets Brave out there, because he's definitely faster than Full Moon Madness, who it's debatable whether that horse wants to lead. And I don't think Mulligan's best trip is on the front end.
I'd love to
Yes,
see Mulligan sitting right off of him, right?
right.
Yeah.
That's probably what he wants to do, and I think that works to Concrete Glory's
Probably to
advantage.
both of their advantages, right?
Maybe.
To him and to Mulligan, right? I think if both of them get to run their best race there, who knows which one of them would, but I think that's the trip that he wants. Mulligan sitting just behind a horse, like a little bit of a target like this. Put a line right through Concrete Glory's race last time out. He just didn't even get out of the gate. And you're playing him back off of his earlier form really quick. One way to go. But the type of horse who, if you're playing multis, kind of like a fun pick 4, pick 5 horse. I think this is a mandatory pay pick 5. It looks like races 7 through 11 starts right here. So yeah, I think Mulligan's going to run really well too. Like I was pointing out, I think his second start back, you hit the trip. I don't think there's that much speed. So the key for him is, can he not be battling with the other 2 speed horses, Full Moon Madness and the 1? Can he just sit off? Very similar to what he did last time out. Feel like he'll probably run well in there.
And then there's the mystery horse in Nakatomi,
right?
Who actually fits very well in
this
spot. But it's just, for some reason, this horse just can't win in graded stake races.
And I always have a little bit of hesitation with the Dubai horses when they ship and they come back. Like I kind of want to see one from them. That's another point.
Well, he kind of pulled this maneuver last year a little bit.
Yeah, and he won the Vanderbilt, but they gave him a little more time.
Right.
Right. He had an extra 6 weeks, almost 2 months.
And there was way more speed in that race. Skelly was in that race.
It's set up very well for him.
Way better than this race. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Nakatomi could win, and if his price gets higher,
I agree with you.
Should be
like
he's
6-ish.
Probably right. He's probably the one to kind of keep an eye on for that reason alone.
When I was mapping this race out, I had him in the 4th spot as kind of just what you're saying. Like he'll be on a pick 4 and a pick 5 and a couple of those tickets. And if you're playing this race individually and he floats up and he's above 5-1 and some of these other horses are getting bet, he might be the horse to play. Nakatomi, who is a grade 1 winner. Heck, he was only 3rd in the Breeders' Cup Sprint 2 years back, right? This horse has a nice ceiling when he's able to show up with his A game. Barry mentions the 1, Concrete Glory, as a fun speed horse from the inside. We both agree that the Book of Dano should run well in here. I just don't know if he's a fun horse to bet. I actually prefer Mulligan of the 2 shorter prices. I think Mulligan's going to run a little bit better just at the 6.5 trip, kind of knowing who he is. The one that I mentioned we didn't talk a whole lot about, like what do we do with the 2, Crazy Mason, whose 3 straight wins have been good, but he's just got no early speed, like at all. He has to come from way out of it. That's a hard horse to trust, right?
No, thank you. Yeah, especially in this race. If there was a little bit more speed, like
last year's version we were talking about with Skelly and some of the others.
Right, exactly. Even the Carter, Quince Brew is as fast as any horse in the country, and this horse ran that one down. Needed the setup completely. So I don't think that horse gets the setup. And 9-2s, I hope they bet him down to 9-2.
This is the grade 3 True North. It's going to go as race number 7 on Saturday at Saratoga, and it'll go right into the Met Mile. First off, I think Castle Chaos is entered on Friday to run, and I would expect him to run in that race. We were talking about it. Like it's just a way more logical. He's 6-1 in that race. I think he might be in this race to help the race fill, and then just scratches, and it's a 4-horse field. The 4 horses in here are good. Like all 4 of them. They are legit animals. Fierceness. Let's kind of start over. You and I bet him in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. We hit him that day when he was 16-1. And I remember mainly when we talked about that race, thinking he would be able to sit the trip like he did, just off. There wasn't that much speed in the race, and that people were going to kind of be cold on him after his really bad Champagne. So we played him that day. And then you sort of go through his career. Like, then I remember myself early in the year last year, I was super cold on him. I was very much trying to play against him in races like the Holy Bull, Florida Derby, Kentucky Derby. Holy Bull didn't really run that bad when you watch it back. It's a race he kind of needed. He was wide off the bench. He ran that awesome race in the Florida Derby. Then in the Kentucky Derby, he just doesn't fire. He gets a tough trip. After the Kentucky Derby, I didn't think he was that kind of horse. Like, I didn't think he was as good as he showed himself to be Jim Dandy, Travers, Breeders' Cup Classic. Because for me, I thought always he was like a really fast horse, a good horse who could get, if the trip was perfect for him, he would handle it. There was a moment when that was kind of the narrative on him early in his career, where it was sort of like he needs the perfect trip, otherwise he's not going to win. And I wasn't even sure if he was really like a mile and an eighth-ish, mile and a quarter horse. His Jim Dandy was good. The Travers, when he and Torpedo Hannah have that really fun stretch run. The Breeders' Cup Classic, though, was the race where
monster.
He had no business finishing second in that race after being so close to that fast pace early on. And it was incredible. And he came back in the Ali Sheba and did exactly what you would have hoped. He ran the same sort of race. He could be even bigger and badder at 4. Like, I don't have any knocks on him at all. He's one of the better horses in training right now in the U.S.
Oh, absolutely. I've always believed in him.
Yeah, you have. No, you absolutely have.
I defended him when I knew he was short in the Holy Bull. Just got a poor trip in the Derby. He never really had a chance. But he's proven his way back. I mean, his best race since the Derby was the one he lost in the Breeders' Cup Classic. So that says a lot about what that race was and how he's come out of it. I just can't see any of these horses beating him. To be honest with you, Raging Torrent is really in good form, but I just don't think he's good enough.
What concerns me, he's really a 7 furlong horse that can get a mile and like can get the right type of mile. I don't know if he can get a mile against these horses. Like, I don't like with White Abarrio and with Fierceness. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to like outfinish those horses late in the race. Honestly, for me, Barry, if I'm playing another horse in this race or trying to beat Fierceness, it would be with the 4.
Yeah.
Versus White Abarrio.
Hot horse. Like, definitely the hot horse.
He may have another step forward, you know, and when last year he was in that division with Fierceness was above him. But like, if you're comparing Just a Touch's race in the Bluegrass to, you know, what Fierceness did against some of those horses, that's a really competitive race. He was right behind Sierra Leone. Then in the Kentucky Derby, Just a Touch doesn't fire. Shows back up in the Iowa Derby, didn't really run his race. He was second. Actually, Henro was in good form right then too, but he's better than that. They gave him time off. And when he showed back up this year at 4, really easy spots for him to kind of come into this race now, building up confidence. And I think he probably will get in front of Fierceness. I think Fierceness has been really good with the target, and I think he'll be fine sitting behind him. So maybe Just a Touch gets a little farther away, and maybe Fierceness and Johnny V are, maybe they're worried about Irad a little bit and White Abarrio, right? I could see him running this race, kind of looking at the horse behind him, maybe instead of in front of him. That's why I went with 1 and 4 if I'm going to use as my other horse in this race. I wouldn't talk anybody off of wanting to single Fierceness, second start back. Like, everything is great for him, but I do respect the ability of Just a Touch. So I'll probably use the 2 of them.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I just think, you know, the post position, everything lines up for Fierceness to run.
It's big. Great for him. Small field, saves the ground. Like, it's very tough to knock him overall. We got to mention a little bit White Abarrio because he's a 4-time Grade 1 winner, but
$6 million. He's almost won $7 million.
You've got 3 millionaires in this race, and 2 of them that have earned over 4.3 million in Fierceness and White Abarrio. And then you throw in to the outside Raging Torrent, who's a millionaire, won the Godolphin Mile and won the Malibu. So some legit horses in here. But even in really good form, White Abarrio hasn't had a whole lot of success in this race. He was 3rd in the Met Mile in 2023 behind Cody's Wish. And then last year, I don't want to really say that's who he is. Like, he's not that horse. He just didn't fire. But he's been in this race twice. Last year on paper, it was a short field in a kind of similar setting where it was like him and National Treasure were the 2. And I think a lot of people look at this race as kind of him and Fierceness are the 2. But honestly, this race is tougher than that race was last year. Like Fierceness is better than National Treasure, and Just a Touch is probably better than Post Time and the other horses behind him. So I respect this guy. He's fantastic when he's really good, especially at Gulfstream Park. We saw him win the Breeders' Cup Classic a few years ago at Santa Anita. I don't think this is a good spot for him, though. It's just a tricky, like, I like two other horses more than him. I have him third of the 4 or 5 in here.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it does look like Fierceness White Barrio 1-2, just off of how this race probably will be run. Because it's like the 4 and the 5.
If they battle each other, then it's just going to be such an easy setup for the other two.
Exactly. Yeah, it'd be a match race at that point, which it might end up being anyway.
Yeah, they might be head and shoulders above, but when you're trying to beat these really strong favorites and short prices, we're always looking at how we could beat them. Could it be by getting out front? Not if the 4 and 5 battle. Certainly.
I'm actually kind of curious to see what their prices are going to be at Post Time.
Yeah. Because, I mean, I don't think they should be. Like, I do feel like Fierceness should be the head and shoulders favorite in here. I'm curious with Barrio if he gets some of that, like, that pub, because he's a very popular horse. White Barrio, Fierceness, the 4 Just a Touch, and the 5 Raging Torrent. We're sure that those 4 will likely run in here if everything goes well leading into the next few. Not sure if Cashflow Chaos will even end up in this race because he's in a much better spot on Friday. They kept the Met Mile out of the pick 5, though, just because it's a short field and probably a race that you don't have to go as deep in pick 5s. But we move to the Jaipur, and this one is 5.5 furlongs on the turf course. Barry, the number 2, Think Big, is in fantastic form. He's kind of vaulted himself up towards the very top of the turf sprint division, winning the Shakertown and the Grade 2 turf sprint in back-to-back races. But on that May 3rd race, he was in the race with AG Bullet. It was the So he ran on May the 3rd. AG Bullet, the mare, she ran in the filly mare version, which was on Friday, the Unbridled Sydney. She was inside, sitting third, and early part of the stretch, she looks like she gets an opening on the inside, and she moves through, but the tiring leader drifts in, completely saws her off on the inside, and she has nowhere to go. So she moves from about to take the lead in the early stretch to pull up, take up, steady, stopped, backed up, absolutely nowhere to go, while Queen Maxima got the dream run through and the really smooth trip. We know AG Bullet has a very high ceiling. We saw it in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. She was third. She was only beaten a neck that day, going 5 furlongs. I just expect her to get a much different trip with Flavian Pratt jumping aboard today. I think they're going to try to course correct and make sure that even if she's a little bit wide, she's kind of out in the clear here. I think she's going to run a big race in here, Barry.
Yeah. I don't see why not, but I think Coppola
that's one of our favorites. Yeah, we like this guy.
Especially from the outside. This horse has been running like that for a minute, from the way outside. And I think that's enough to just muddy this whole race up. A horse like My Boy Prince really interests me on the cutback. I think this distance is probably the best distance for this horse in general. I love that comeback race. This horse will probably sit a little farther back in this one. And
he'll have some finish, though, here. Because
exactly
the concern with My Boy Prince was always when he would go too far, when he would go longer. Mark Hasse has always liked this horse from really early on. He started up at Woodbine. They put him in the Grade 1 summer early as a 2-year-old. He finished behind Carson's Run, who's a multiple Grade 1 winner. Then they put him in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. He finished third that day. He ran really well in the Breeders' Cup a couple years back. He started last year not quite in the best of form in the Keeneland race. Then he rattles off 3 wins in a row. He wins the plate trial. He's second in the King's Plate, which is the Canadian Kentucky Derby. He runs second there. Then they put him in against Open Older Company in the Woodbine Mile. That's a tough spot following that. He faces Brilliant Birdie in the Bryant Station. Then he faces Langnos. You could see Cassie has always had high hopes for this horse and really thought well of him. Just couldn't quite put it all together. Maybe now as a 4-year-old, he's able to relax a little bit more. He sat off. I think he can sit and finish in this spot.
Yeah, I think the distance was all the issue. I mean, he was running against the best.
Going longer.
And this is not saying these horses aren't the best, but the shorter distance probably makes a better trip for this horse, and like you said, gets the nice
keeps him in it
again. And I think Our Shot kind of merits the same kind of consideration in the same fashion, because they're going to try to get, I would think, similar trips.
Our Shot is the 3 at 8-1. Barry also mentions the 10 from the outside. We like Coppola. He's a scary horse not to use because he can clear fields and can absolutely fly. Outside draw just gives him one way to go. The 9.
Think Big. It's funny. Think Big has won 3 in a row, and I just don't feel like he should be 6-5 in this spot.
No. I mean, his races are good. They're strong, but that's a little too short for him in a turf sprint like this with some others who are a lot faster than him early on. The 9 has serious ability too. She's a mare facing the boys, but I think it's a really good spot for her.
Yeah.
And she can probably be forward and sit a little bit and then finish second start off the bench. Pratt jumping aboard.
So what do you do with the 10? I mean the 8. I'm sorry, Allegon.
She was the next one for me. Like, I don't hate her. I just sort of I like My Boy Prince a little bit better than her. I think coming out of that same race, I feel like My Boy Prince maybe as a 4-year-old has a little more upside. I think we kind of have seen his best, but his best is very close to winning a race like this. Like,
well, that's why I find
him 98-ish.
I find him a little bit interesting because of the fact that he's probably going to be a decent price. He's training well coming into this race too. That comebacker, again, wasn't that bad. This horse was out wide, didn't get a great trip, got beat by Bold Journey and My Boy Prince. I think that horse could turn the tables. I would definitely keep an eye on the board with this horse. If you get a little bit under 10-1, like 8-1, I think this horse might be ultra live.
It's Allegon as we finish up with the Grade 1 Jaipur. Think Big has moved towards the top of the turf sprint division. Another win here would absolutely put him right there at the top, looking for 4 straight victories. Let's move to the Pennon Ridge, race number 10. This one is a Grade 3 event, going a mile and a 16th in here. I'm going to throw one downfield, my friend, as Barry says, because the one Zulu Kingdom is the horse to beat, no doubt about it. Respect him. He's a Grade 1 winner, just won the American Turf. He's going to make the 3rd start of his form cycle. He could sit nicely from the inside, all positives. So if I like and I respect Zulu Kingdom, and I think he's very legitimate, he's 6-5 on the morning line. I want to look at a horse that was really close to him before, and it's still a maiden, Noble Confessor.
The 9,
how about that?
Yeah.
Still a maiden. So when they ran against each other, we can pull the race up. It was last year. It was at Belmont at Aqueduct. We're looking at the 1 and the 4, Noble Confessor and Zulu Kingdom. So remember, this was also Noble Confessor's first start on the turf. So look where they're sitting. Noble Confessor is actually sitting in front of Zulu Kingdom, sitting 3rd, getting like a really nice setup, getting a really nice trip in here. But as the field starts to back up, the 1 gets kind of pinned in a little bit and doesn't get as good of a trip. You'll see 1 stuck. Watch Zulu Kingdom get the opportunity to move around, where the 1 is just kind of waiting and kind of stuck and pinned in. Now Zulu Kingdom is going to get the trip in the clear right here. Boom. Angles outside. The 1's got to wait, got to hesitate, doesn't know where to go. Should they go in between? Not sure. Now watch the 1. Now it opens up, tries to go there, gets through, but Zulu Kingdom had all the momentum built up. Now look at the 1 get really game here and make this close. Very tight finish. Massive gallop out on the 1. So this was last year when they faced each other.
They should have won. I mean, that's definitely a race that the 1 should have won.
No doubt about it. Since then, they both went and ran in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. In that race, Noble Confessor ran 6th. He actually outfinished Zulu Kingdom, who ran 7th in that race. They were both only beaten by a couple lengths. So the 2 races last year, when these 2 horses faced each other, they were right next to each other both times. Noble Confessor outfinished Zulu Kingdom in one of them. And then in the other one, Zulu Kingdom beat him when Noble Confessor was unlucky and got the worst of the trips. Then off from the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf all the way to the maiden race on May 4th to start the 3-year-old season. So you know that the horse probably needs a race off the bench for that long, but he actually still runs well. A Barry Spears kind of angle. He runs the same speed figures he was running last year when he shows back up. I know he was favored, and you probably want him to win that race. The problem was it was won by a lone speed horse. So people may look at that race and go, Noble Confessor dropped back in and he couldn't even break his maiden. I don't think he's good enough to compete with the field like this. But I'll tell you why he didn't break his maiden. It was a lone speed winner, and that horse is actually a pretty solid horse, uncatalyzed. It's not a bad horse. A Chad Brown horse who won his second start and won with an 81 Beyer speed figure. So can we see this guy take a step forward, second off the bench, and get into where he was competing with Zulu Kingdom? I think he's going to be a way bigger price than Zulu Kingdom. I'm definitely going to use him in here, even though he's still a maiden, because his 3 grass races, he's run well in all 3 of them. 2 of them could have been wins. 1 of them should have been a win, and the other was in the Breeders' Cup. So I tried to sell you on him a little bit here, Barry, because I don't think he's too far off of Zulu.
I was already
Kingdom.
sold. I was already
Beautiful.
sold. I was thinking that this horse, got a terrible trip the last time and was going to benefit. I want 12-1, but
Yeah.
I think we're probably going to get more like 6 or 7, which is fine, especially in multis. But man, 12-1 would be optimal and probably what the horse is worth.
Noble Confessor is interesting. I think, a horse like the 4 Flying Mohawk, this is a turf horse who ran well in the Jeff Ruby Stakes, finished second. This is the horse that Jason Worth owns for 2-8 Racing. And now they get back to the turf. Like, I don't know if he's quite at this level, but I think he's just going to run a lot better on the grass than he did on the dirt last time out, getting back to being in a home spot, blinkers coming on.
Yeah, I also didn't think there was a whole ton of speed in here, and I thought Me Bago might rate a second look.
They're just pedal to the metal. Like, he flies, and he's going to go, and he'll be the type of horse in races like this over the next couple of years. If he keeps running, he's going to win plenty of races like this just because of his speed.
But it's kind of a stretch. I'm not really enthusiastic about the rider.
With the speed horses
how he
we've talked about,
handles
irate
himself on the speed.
Yeah.
And I also thought the 13 Colonies might rate a second look. I know this horse got beat by AP Kid in Golden Channel down at Gulfstream, but this horse wasn't far off, improved off of that race, and I think has more improvement. There's a higher ceiling here. I want to see what this horse looks like in the paddock before I make any decisions, but definitely one that's on my radar as a big long shot.
I'll give you one more that's a fun price. The number 5, Tom's Magic. So his first 2 races, very good. He wins, finished second, breaks his maiden, comes back and wins the Black Gold. That's a solid effort winning that stakes race. On April the 7th, this horse had a brutal trip. He got slammed going out of the gate on both sides. And then he's like 3 deep going into the turn. He's 5 off. The horse inside of him starts to drift out a little bit, and it pushes him even wider. There were like 4 different things that went wrong for him. If he's a fair price, I could play him back and use him in here, just putting a line right through that Transylvania. It's also something that I've mentioned in a few of these videos. Any horses, Barry, that didn't run well at the start of the Keeneland meet, I'm gonna be a little forgiving because those first couple days that got moved,
monsoon.
they were raining so hard. We don't really know if a lot of these horses were taking to the turf or the dirt, whatever the surface was. So if I see horses that have good form and then maybe threw in a clunker in one of those early days of the Keeneland meet, I'll probably be a little more forgiving with them just because we remember what that was like and having to adjust some of those racing days. Tom's Magic, 15-1 on the morning line. Anyone else in here you want to hit on?
No, I think we got them all.
Yeah, you talked about the 13, the 10, 13 colonies. We both give a big nod to the maiden, Noble Confessor. Barry also thinks the 7 Me Bogo could be a fun horse to at least use underneath in some spots with the likely main speed of this race. Others in here that, I mean, Zulu Kingdom is obvious. We started with him talking about his ability, but the 4 Flying Mohawk getting back to the turf. Another interesting one. I saw CJ Thoroughbreds posting about how they've been really unlucky with stakes races lately too. I think like they've been getting slammed out of the gate, troubled trips, bumped all over the place. So maybe due for a little bit of a smooth journey with a horse like Tom's Magic. Let's move into 3 straight grade 1s to finish up Saturday at Saratoga on Belmont Stakes Day. This first one is the grade 1 Woody Stevens. I love this race every year. I like the Pate Mile. I love these sprint races for the 3-year-olds. Honestly, going inside to out, Big Trues won his debut, then finished second in his second start behind Patch Adams. It was on a sloppy track, and he didn't run that poorly. Madacat Road is much better going a little shorter, as we saw in the Pat Day Mile, in the Rebel and the Florida Derby. He was just facing good horses and going a little bit farther than where he wanted. He actually lost to Macho Music, who's a really nice horse, up to about a mile right next door. Look at what Patch Adams has done sprinting. This just feels like the trip that he wants. Citizen Bull cuts back. Baffert seems really positive about him cutting back and maybe even being able to sit off the pace a little more at a sprint. I do think T-Craft is a little overmatched just based on what he's been doing, but he's won 3 in a row coming into this race. Like, he's in really nice form. Colloquial threw up a 106 buyer speed figure. He absolutely could win this race. Like, I don't have a problem with Gunmetal at all. I just don't really like him as much as I like some of the others. He wouldn't even really be a shock in here. Neo Equus, he ran in the Derby. Look at the races before the Derby. He's finishing behind Tapan Street, Sovereignty, and River Thames. And now he gets to cut back a little bit. He might be interesting on the cutback. Chancellor McPatrick, I understand why they're going in this spot. I'm a little colder on him. I just don't know what to really expect from him, but he's going to be one of the favorites in here. He certainly could win this race. And I like Gate to Wire a little bit because I think that sloppy track, he's a little too far back. He had some trouble. What he did in the Swale was really good. Something like that in here would be very competitive. And in a big field like this, you kind of assume they're going to have a lot of early speed. I just thought you could make a case for like 8 or 9 of the 11 in here.
Oh yeah, this is a doozy. There's a whole lot of ways you can go in this race and probably be right and wrong at the same time.
Yep.
I think Baffert's horses, Medicaid Road and Citizen Bull, this is what they wanted to do all along. I think he was trying to stretch them out, obviously the Derby Trail and all that kind of stuff. But it seems to me that these horses were always meant to sprint. And I think they're going to be very tough in this spot, both of them. That being said, horses like Chancellor McPatrick, who I thought would run better coming out of the Tampa Bay Derby, but he was really, really flat. He was up against the track on Tampa Bay Derby Day. I mean, you couldn't get a horse to come from behind, really. And him and Hill Road kind of made a little bit of a move in that race. But it seems like Hill Road has blossomed into a better horse than Chancellor McPatrick. And then his style at the shorter distances really hurts because he's going to have to close and beat, probably past
everybody,
9 or 10 of these horses, if not all of them. So I'm not really too keen on his chances. Gate to Wire is very interesting on the cutback. I don't think this horse was ever meant to go that long, and they tried
and it was a sloppy track too. Like, he wasn't passing in the Fountain of Youth. He didn't even run bad. Look, he just finished behind Sovereignty, River Thames, Neo Equus, and Burnham Square. You could just see once they hit like 6.5, 7, he starts idling. He doesn't
Right.
he starts spinning his wheels.
And I think getting back to this 7 furlong trip is ideal. And I can't say that for too many of these horses.
I'm
Matticat
using
Road
him
is
all
another
over.
one. I think Matticat Road is going to really be kind of overlooked in this spot, hopefully, because I think this horse has a really, really good shot. It should get the best trip out of everybody. And I think those tougher races at longer distances, and I do appreciate that he's not coming in off of a 1.125 race, rather than, I'd rather see him coming off the Pat Day mile.
Shorten up. It's like the
Right.
shortening up progression, right?
Exactly,
Instead of
yeah.
coming from way longer to cut back, you saw him go a little shorter to kind of sharpen up some of that speed even more. I mean, you can make a lot of cases. I think the 4 is going to run well sprinting. Patch Adams. He was such a highly regarded horse early on. And then we see this all the time. He just doesn't want to go that far, right? They put him in the Southwest. He ran fine. They put him in the Tampa Bay Derby. Nope, he just doesn't want to go that far. They cut him back. Really nice effort. He can sit a little bit sprinting and he can finish. I think he's right there in the mix. I completely agree with you. I like Citizen Bull, I think, a little better of the Bafferts, just because watching some of the training, third start off the bench, I think he's going to come into this race and get a really nice trip in the middle of the pack, sitting a little bit. I respect the heck out of Colloquial, too. I thought I like seeing the difference between his last 2 races where he breaks his maiden and he's able to sit. But then in the Lafayette, it was a smaller field. They didn't want to get cute. They just said, let's put him on the front end because we think he's the best horse in here. So I'm not too concerned about the speed figure either. Just what I was talking about. That's the early few days of the meet at Keeneland when the track was a little bit off. So everybody's figures are a little light just because the track was playing differently. What do we do with the 9? Neo Equa. He was probably my toughest read in this race because I like him cutting back. This is a class relief for him, but he still will probably have to run better and maybe a little faster than we've seen him run on speed figures.
Not sure what his running style is exactly. I mean, he's won on the lead, sort of.
But he's not as fast as everybody else in here sprinting.
Right. So I think he's just in a tough spot where he's going to have to kind of get in the race, but him getting in the race might be his undoing because of that running style.
He might be better suited for one of those mid-tier derbies where he gets the lead, right? A West Virginia Derby or a race like that where he's on the lead going a little bit longer and able to kind of cruise. The problem that he had is he really couldn't get the lead in the Florida Derby or the Kentucky Derby. How he ran in the Fountain of Youth, that's the template, I think, for him in good races where he's able to get the lead, kind of clear, and see if he can hold on for a slice. See,
and what you just said makes me believe that he's not exactly a sprinter.
I do too. I went back and forth with him a bunch because I respect this horse. There's some ability there, and he's really honest. I like the horse Rated by Merit, who beat him a couple times earlier in his career. It's just a weird trip mapping it out. I do think he probably gets his best out of races where he can get to the lead, establish the lead, and try to get really comfortable and cruise there. And I just can't see that happening in this spot. Yeah, but this is a good, fun pick 4, pick 5 type of race. Barry and I will both be using the 11 for sure, gate to wire. We both have the 5 all over the tickets, Citizen Bull. Barry also mentioned the 2, the other Baffert, Matticat Road. I like the 4, Patch Adams, and the 7, Colloquial, a little bit in a wide open edition of the Grade 1 Woody Stevens. We move to the Manhattan as the Grade 1 Manhattan leads us right into the Grade 1 Belmont Stakes. So in the Manhattan, you've got Spirit of St. Louis, who has won 3 of his last 4, but the last 3 in particular, winning 2 of those 3, those are 2 of the 5 to 7 most prestigious turf races in the U.S., the Pegasus World Cup Turf and the Turf Classic. I'd say they're in the top 10 of grass races throughout the entire year. You could maybe even make a case for top 5 So he has now stamped himself at the top of the division by winning 2 out of 3 races, big races like that. I think we got to kind of start with him because he's just in really good form. You liked him when he won the Pegasus World Cup at 8-1 before he kind of became this horse who's now at the top of the division.
Yeah, I thought, Pegasus Day was the right time, and it actually ended up being the right time. I'm not too sure, I think he ran a really good race in the Turf Classic, but man, I just can't trust this horse. I just can't. I don't know why. I think a lot of it is because of his earlier start. He was winning those state bred races, and they weren't very good. Um, to me, he still has something to prove, and that might be good for him as far as uh, the connections and everybody wanting him to keep doing well. But man, I think Carson's Run is sitting on a big race.
I like him in
I
here
know
too.
he got.
He's better than his speed figures.
Oh, certainly, and he definitely is better than Deterministic, who beat him last time. I think just Deterministic has been running, and he wasn't.
And he got loose on the front end in a race where
Mhm.
nobody else pushed the pace in a small field. So I preferred Carson's Run of the Clement runners. Honestly, I wasn't sure what to do with Far Bridge either because
Soft
he got
trips the last couple.
and that's when like earlier he's always had talent, always had ability, but where he got really good was when they stretched him out longer and he gets the softer trips going forward. Look at the move to the Sword Dancer. When you start seeing him go a mile and a half, they put him on the lead. The Turf Classic, mile and a half, he wins that race. The Breeders' Cup, okay, we can put a line through that. But his last 5 races, the 4 wins have all been in a lot longer trips than this mile and 3/16 trip here.
Yeah, I just think that this horse has just got really 2 soft trips, and now it has to deal with a bad post
And
and
he's going
a
to have to
not
go
so
quicker early to keep
ideal,
up with these
right,
horses.
to kind of he's going to have to work to get to the front, and I think that might be the undoing, especially with Deterministic in this race, who's probably just as quick. Um, that horse is going to have his hands full, even with Tucson, I think, getting in the mix as well.
Because
Uh,
he's got to be just pushing the pace in here, right? Like that's
right.
his best chance to be really close up.
Exactly, and I don't think anybody inside of him is really going to just let him go. So that being said, I'm really down on his chances. I do like Carson's Run quite a bit, and I think Highway Robert has the class and ability to win this race. He just needs to get himself in position better earlier. Torres is probably better at that than a lot of the other riders he's had on him. So I expect him to get a really good trip in here and probably be able to finish it off. He's going to be tough.
So why I'll give my guy one more shot, Barry. You know who I'm going to go to. The reason why is I will give him a shot with Pratt jumping aboard and just hoping he can get the best trip out of him, which we saw Pratt do back in the Red Smith a couple starts back. The integration, like he got the most brutal trip last time out. I'm not saying he was going to win. I don't say, but he was looming up. He's right behind horses and he's just looking for a place to go. And he tried 2 or 3 different spots and all of them closed up. He was just completely stopped behind a wall of horses. I will use him along with a few others. Like I don't like love him more than any, but in my pick 4s and pick 5s, seeing that Pratt jumps aboard, 3rd start off the bench, 3rd start of his form cycle, I'll give him one more shot because I will say, like these races with Spirit of St. Louis, I respect him as a horse, but these horses in here don't scare me from
No.
like a grade 1 caliber horse perspective. And that's why I think integration is still at the right class level with a lot of these horses. These are probably truly like grade 2 horses, most of them. And that's where I think integration is in these soft grade 1s. I think he can compete. Now, I wouldn't want to have played him unless there's something a little different. What's different in here? Okay, we get a new jock aboard who's one of the absolute best, 3rd start of the form cycle, a jock who knows him well. I'll use him along with the 4, Carson's Run, who we both kind of went to as one of our first horses to use in this race at a really fair price. And then the question I had was like, what do you do with the 6 and the 9, who are both going to be the short prices, but I don't really love as much in the spot. So I'm a little cold on. I respect Spirit of St. Louis, but you and I sound like we're both a little colder on Far Bridge and just thinking he's way better going longer and getting that longer trip.
Yes, absolutely. This is still a tough race, man.
It's competitive. It is. It's not easy because I'm with you in that I respect Spirit of St. Louis and what he's done, but I'm still not quite ready to be like,
right. I'm
this
not
is
sold.
one of the
I'm
best
turf
horses in the U.S.
Right.
Which, if he wins this other grade 1, he certainly is now. If he wins this Manhattan. Spirit of St. Louis, Far Bridge will take some money. Then there's a lot of other directions you can go. Maybe a horse like Integration gets the trip he's been hoping for. Maybe it's Carson's Run. Carson's Run was a grade 1 winner at 2 and a grade 1 winner at 3. Let's see if he's going to be a grade 1 winner also at 4. That's a really cool feat when horses can do that and win grade 1s in each of their seasons. Barry, let's move to the big one, the feature, the grade 1 Belmont Stakes. Remember, this Belmont being run at Saratoga means it's run at 1.25 miles instead of 1.5 miles. And I think what that does, we handicap the race kind of like we would handicap the Derby going in. You don't think of the 1.5 miles as like a hindrance to as many horses. You kind of keep a lot more horses in the field. We've got the Derby winner, Sovereignty. We've got the Preakness winner, Journalism. We've got the top 3 finishers from the Derby, which include Baeza. And those are your top 3. Moving behind them, you've got a major speed player, the Bob Baffert trained Rodriguez. Now, the concern for Rodriguez would be he hasn't raced now in 2 full months because he had a small issue leading into the Kentucky Derby. If you look at his work tab, he doesn't have that much time missing from the works, right? It's just mainly like 1 work missing, and they kind of gave him a little more time in between 2 others, but he's never been 1.25 miles, and he'll try to go the farthest he's been against the toughest group he's ever faced off a break, which is a little bit of a concern. But him and Crudo, they're the 2 speeds. So if one of the 2 of them gets the lead, Barry, they could be pretty tough if they're not getting pressed from the other runner. And then you've got Heart of Honor, who's a longer shot, and Uncaged I had a tough time getting to. I actually played him in the Peter Pan. I like this horse as a horse. He just didn't really fire in the Peter Pan, and his best races have come on muddy tracks. I just need to see more from him before wanting to include him in a group like this. How do you see this thing unfolding? Who do you like of maybe the big 3, or if you go outside of them, talk to us about the Belmont.
Yeah, I don't have very much faith in a horse like Crudo.
I don't either.
But I do have quite a bit of faith in a horse like Rodriguez.
I think of the speeds for sure.
Because I don't think this horse needs the lead. I think he can sit, albeit not far off, but sit enough to have a horse like Crudo kind of be a target. And that might be all the difference, especially if they go slow. And this has the potential for them to be going slow. If that does happen, Rodriguez is going to be ultra tough because that horse ran a pretty fast race in the Wood Memorial. Nobody came out of that race and ran in the Derby, which was, I thought, a little bit interesting.
They both they were both supposed to, and they got little issues right before, Rodriguez and Grande.
And like you said, Rodriguez really didn't miss too much time training. It was just, timing of when the
races were coming up.
Right, and when the issue flared up. So I can be forgiving of that, knowing what I know, and what everybody else knows as far as how the injury affected this horse and kept him out of both the Preakness and the Derby. But being here, gives me a lot more confidence. This horse is ready to run, and the setup works and everything else. And it makes me cold on Sovereignty, even though Sovereignty has kind of run into slower fractions before. I don't know if he can get there.
So you kind of, when you're playing this race, you kind of have to pick which of the 3 shorter prices that you like, which you don't like. You're not. I don't think it's probably the smartest thing to be using all of Sovereignty and Baeza and Journalism. and whatever your exotics are, there's probably one of those 3 horses that you got to figure which one you don't want to use as much and which one you're a little cold on. And of those, I'm with you on that with Sovereignty. It's not that I don't like him as a horse. I actually ended up making him my top selection in the Derby after the scratches. He got a great trip. The sloppy track might have aided him also. And they were flying that day. We kept talking about it over and over, how well the race was going to set up if they all went to the lead early, like they did. And Journalism ran well. He just moved a little bit early. Everything went the way for Sovereignty. I wonder with a horse like Journalism too, because we'll ask the question, does the 3 races in 5 weeks, is that going to take something out of him? I don't know. It could, sure. I will say, I wonder, in kind of listening to yesterday with Andrew Beyer and Stephen Christ and Brad Free, they were on the webinar and they were talking about the field. They were talking about buyers and how, they're lower than they used to be, buyer speed figures. Mm-hmm. I wonder with a horse like Journalism, like the racing himself into fitness, like this horse is really game, and how he won the Preakness. Like he's gaining this experience in races and the ability to overcome and adapt stuff that I don't know if Sovereignty has. Like he just seems to me like he's got a little bit more versatility, and he's kind of really growing into himself now. I wonder if all this running in the last few weeks, like calluses him a little bit, like it builds him up even more. I don't know, Barry, like I'm not a clocker, so I'm not necessarily one who's watching every horse's morning workouts and trying to glean off of that. But holy crap, this horse looks incredible in the morning. like that's what I will say. Like he bows his neck and he's prancing around like a dressage horse. And he looks very much like how Zenyatta would kind of prance around on the track. Like he looks fan-freaking-tastic.
Well, I think he knows he's the dominant horse of this,
he does,
this
right?
Group. And I think that goes a long way. I think this horse from here on out will will his way through a lot of races more than, he's going to be just flat out better than everybody else.
Yep.
Because I think some of those horses are going to catch up, but he's very good, and he asserts dominance. Like when he was out west in the San Felipe and the San Anita Derby, you could tell that he asserted dominance over every horse that was out there.
Yep.
And he knew it. And I think that carried into the Derby, where he kind of did the same thing. He asserted dominance, got to lead first, and just got run down by a horse.
One other horse who ran a great race.
Probably ran a good race and got a better trip. And then in the Preakness, everybody saw what happened there. He got bumped around, all that nonsense, and then still won. So I think mentally this horse is where he needs to be. And I don't think that the 3 races and how many weeks is going to take that much of a toll, especially when he knows he's better than the rest of these horses. I mean, I would put him on top for it, not the pace scenario.
I think his connections feel that way too, which I like. This feels like it's a fun rivalry. Like they feel we are the best 3-year-old. If we got a chance to face Sovereignty 10 times, we'd beat him 7 times.
Right.
I think they feel that way about Journalism, and I do too. I feel like in a 10 race matchup between Journalism and Sovereignty, it would probably go like 7-3, and we may have saw one of the 3 races where Sovereignty gets the better of the trips. I'm absolutely going to be using Baeza too. And what's funny, I didn't really use him very much in the Kentucky Derby. I liked him in the Santa Anita Derby, and I feel like trip wise, he could be the one that gets that trip we're hoping. I think he's going to be sitting 3rd, right behind the Rodriguez and Crudo. How he sat in the Santa Anita Derby, how he sat when he broke his maiden, and even in the race prior to that. In the Kentucky Derby, remember, he was post 19. He was the widest of all, and Pratt just had to make a decision early on. He took back. He sort of let a lot of traffic inside of him develop, and then he ran on really well late. I don't think that's who he is as a horse. I think as a horse in most races, he can be quicker, and he got the jump on Journalism when they raced at Santa Anita in the Santa Anita Derby. For me, I went 6 and 7 as the top 2, Barry, just thinking this is the trip. I think you were kind of getting towards Rodriguez, thinking he was the horse that might capitalize on the trip, right?
Right. Yep. Exactly. And I like Baeza quite a bit, but I just think journalism has his number. I
Yeah.
think he gets away from journalism, he'd probably be all world. Um, but running against journalism, I think I I honestly think that journalism mentally
Uh-oh. Did we lose you for a second there?
knows that he's better
Oh, there we
than
go.
most of these horses and runs like it every and he just came on and just said, no, you're not going to win. I'm going to pass you. So it was amazing thing to see. And I think this is probably, journalism is the best while, to be honest. Since California.
So we got you through the major contenders, the major players in here. Let's say if a horse that's double digit odds wins this race. So that would be Hill Road, that would be Uncaged, Crudo, or Heart of Honor. Who of them, or like who of the long shots do you think has a chance to run the best race in here? Uh-oh, I lost you for a sec. I think we were hearing you kind of cutting in for just a second there. So we'll see if we can get Barry just to finish up with us here. Yeah, I like going through the field. Heart of Honor, I think he will run better second time US, but is he going to get the trip that we're talking about with a race where there's not that much early speed? Getting to Crudo, for a long shot, at least we feel like he'll be forward and he could have a say and maybe hang around. I had a tougher time with Uncaged if the race doesn't come up like really sloppy. The one, I like the way Hill Road is moving. I like he's moving in the right direction. I just don't know if he's going to close like with Sovereignty and some of these other horses as well. So as I was trying to make cases for the longer shots, it's always what I want to do. I want to try to build the case for like the longest price horses that we can in most of these races. I had a tough time getting there with Uncaged. I had a tough time getting there on the win end with Crudo, and probably a tough time getting there with Heart of Honor. The others really wouldn't shock me as much. I think Journalism's the best. I think he's the horse to beat. We've got Baeza as the one that I was kind of mapping out and talking about the trip, I think, with Baeza. But Barry, I think we got you back now. Of the prices, if one of these crazy price horses wins, or even not wins, but runs well, who of them can you make a legitimate case for them running a good race on Saturday?
I'd say Hill Road.
Me too. Yeah.
Kind of the hot horse angle. Ran
Uh-oh. Was losing Barry again. We made it through about 2 full hours, all of Thursday, all of Friday, and then, of course, in the last race on Saturday when we're chatting.
pretty good in the.
Okay, there we go. We got you back now. Good. Good old technology, some technical difficulties there, but we made it through most of these. And I think you heard Barry talking about Hill Road. Let's get him back one more time. Barry, there we go. Let's try this one more time. It's funny. We had 2 full hours. We talked about all the Thursday races, the Friday races, and everything up until the Belmont. And it was perfect. We had no issues. And then on the last race and like the last question, we get a little glitchy. But you were talking about Hill Road being kind of like the now horse and a horse who's heading in the right direction, because we've talked about him a few different times. He had some issues before races where like he would miss training time and he wasn't always going into the races completely primed and ready to run his absolute best.
Yeah. I think that horse is getting better, and this is as good a time as any to run in a spot like this, because he might be kind of best of the rest and end up kind of in the picture somewhere, and could springboard into a better horse in the fall, which would be ideal.
And if, let's say, some of the big Triple Crown races did take a little bit out of journalism, or Sovereignty doesn't get the kind of trip, he is a horse who, with one more step forward, could be on par with some of the top horses in this division. I just can't say that for the other horses. Like, I can't say that for Uncaged. I can't say that for Crudo. And I can't say that for Heart of Honor. But for the one, Hill Road, he's got the trajectory and like the progression where, oh, you know what? Maybe finally stringing a few races together, he was able to step forward. If he gets right up into like the high 90s, 97, 98 buyer, well, that's right there in the range with a lot of these. So he would be the one of the price horses that I could try to talk myself into using in some ways, shapes, or forms in the Grade 1 Belmont. But Barry, man, we just covered a ton of ground. If you didn't know, we have 3 separate videos for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday racing. Barry and I went through all of the stakes races, the graded stakes for Saturday on this video. We went through the pick 5, races 9 through 13 on the Friday video. And then we went through the late pick 4 on the Thursday video. That includes a couple of graded stakes races. So find yourself a good friend like a Barry Spears. That's the one thing I will give my life advice, because it's so nice when you know you've got someone there who, hey, Barry, I got a busy week coming up. Do you think like if we pick out Wednesday night, can we just go through all of these races and like knock them out? Sure. Whatever you need, man. Let's do that. Let's do it on Wednesday night, 2 hours straight, 3 different days, whatever races, man. I love chatting races with you. I just freaking love you overall, my good friend. So thank you very much for all the help. And before we get out of here, give a plug to the Notorious OTB. Let everybody know where they can find more Barry for all the fans of Barry and Chase, the Wolf of Oaklawn.
Yeah, we're really busy actually this week. We got a show on Thursday with Ken Rudolph, Friday with Matt DeSantis. We were on with Sarah El-Badwi today. So we got some good content coming up. We got a $100 budget pod on Friday and Thursday, one with Matt DeSantis, one with Ken Rudolph. So, you know, get an idea of how we can play these earlier races or even the bigger races. So we'll see what we come up with.
Barry, thanks again for all your hard work. I wish you the best of luck all week long over the next few days. Good luck to everyone out there. If you ever have any questions, if you ever have any comments, we'd always love to hear from you. Barry loves chatting with the folks online. If you have a question, if you want to tell him that he helped you make some money, we love hearing from you. Give him a follow or let us know on the YouTube channel. Subscribe, drop some comments in there. Did we miss a horse that you may like? Or do you agree with us in one of these races and you've got a big, strong opinion where we also had one? Let us know and have a fantastic weekend. Make sure to head to shop.drf.com. Before you do anything, though, get those past performances, clocker reports, betting strategies, and everything you need for the Belmont Stakes on Saturday.